Or anybody from the co-host, if you can just let me know if my voice is clear.
Yes, very clear. We can hear you. This is Peace from Georgia State.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Peace. Okay, I'll just give a brief introduction about Education USA, and then I leave the floor to all of you.
Sounds good.
Okay, so thank you everybody for joining this webinar, and I'm going just to give you like a brief introduction for those who are joining for the first time, a session with Education USA. So Education USA is a global network. What we do is providing accurate, unbiased information about US higher education. We have over than 430 offices in more than 170 countries all over the world, and we are a State Department grant located at Amir East, Egypt. We have two branches, one in Cairo in Du'i, and the other one is in Alexandria. We are a team of 3 advisors, myself, Yasmin Rouaini, Education USA Senior Advisor for Egypt, and we have Hiba Abu Khalifa, she's the advisor in Alexandria, and Walid Tarabulsi, my colleague in Cairo office. All of the services we provide are free of charge, so do not hesitate to send us any inquiries after the session if you have any questions. We'll be sharing our contact information in the chat box later on, and we're so happy to have our speakers today. I want them to introduce themselves so they can talk better about their positions, but we have really great people today from different colleges, and I really hope that the session would be helpful for everybody to see different perspectives. So please go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm sharing my screen. Are you able to see me and the screen, by the way?
Yes, yes.
Good, good, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm waiting. I saw my colleague, John, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, how about Steve? Is Steve here too?
Steve is here as well.
I'm here as well.
Okay, sounds absolutely wonderful. So, well, thank you again for joining us today. I'm very grateful that Education USA provided this opportunity, especially during this time. We missed traveling and meeting you all face to face. However, due to this COVID and special circumstances, I'm very happy we can continue to communicate, to stay in touch, and updating you all with some special sessions and also requirements. There's a lot of changes this fall and also impacting next spring. So today I'm going to use this session focusing on several topics. Number one, we're going to briefly introduce you all about the education system in the United States and some changes comes to admission processes for the fall as well as the spring. Then I turn to my colleagues, talk about for graduate admission, their requirements, especially focusing on personal statements or essay writing, and give you some tips and recommendations. And then possibly if we have time, we're gonna cover like financial aid and scholarship policies. I know a lot of students, we recently hear about 3 challenges the international students are facing. Number one is the visa. They can't get a visa, they cannot get into their appointment before we start this fall. What we're gonna do, what are the requirements? Number two, which is travel restrictions. There's no flights coming to the state, or after coming to the state, there are requirements such as 2 weeks quarantine, self-quarantine. Number 3 challenges are the financial challenges, which is a lot of students internationally due to the financial crisis right now caused by the COVID. Many families say, before we have 2 parents both working, providing, now we have one, only one single income. The students are meeting a lot of burdens financially. So we're gonna look into what we can do to help all of you. So the session, I'm gonna share my screen, go through a brief presentation, hopefully use the first 45 to 1 hour, and then we're gonna open up the floor to all questions. Does that sound a good order? And yes, also perfect. You can ask questions anytime at the chat box. John, Steve, you want to talk a little bit about yourself before we get started?
And please, can I just have a request to keep the questions till the end, because usually they just get lost in the chat box.
Excellent. Yeah, sure. If you could help us monitor the questions. Definitely, we can wait until
Yeah,
the end to do that as
perfect.
well.
So
Okay.
yeah, so please everybody keep your questions till the end. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll ask my colleagues, John and Steve, introduce themselves briefly, and we'll get started.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jon Stewart. I am the manager for retention and progression in the Office of Graduate Services at Georgia State University in the College of Arts and Sciences. Before that, I worked as an academic advisor, so I've had a foot in the admissions realm as well. So I'm just grateful for this opportunity, and I look forward to talking with all of you.
And hi, everyone. My name is Steve Van Duzer. I'm the Director of Graduate Recruiting at Georgia State's Robinson College of Business. I've been working with graduate business schools for over 10 years now. I've been at Robinson for about 4 years. Prior to that, I was working with full-time MBA programs at George Washington University. Robinson's a big school. We represent 16 master's programs. I think we're the 10th largest business school by faculty. So a big program. So happy to talk about programs like the MBA as far as admissions, but we have such a broad range that hopefully we'll be able to cover all of your interests.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear okay, right? We're gonna move forward, start the presentation. Again, my name is Peace Lee. I'm the Associate Director for International Admissions at Georgia State University. We have students every year from 137 countries. We are a comprehensive research institution, but before that, I think it would be good for us to understand a little bit more. I know many of you have heard about this many, many times. So just in case you have not seen this kind of structural presentation, universities in the United States, I think by the count in 2018, we have 4,800 and more colleges and universities. They briefly divided into 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is not by ranking. So the ranking has nothing to do with the tier structural frameworks. Tier 1 is comprehensive research universities. A lot of times if you do the US News and World Reports, and if you're asking universities ranking, they normally give you a research institution ranking. And also the next level, which is university colleges and liberal arts and colleges. Those universities or college campuses are usually has undergraduate program focusing on undergrads, and then they have maybe, I would say, a few master degrees, and very, very few of them has a PhD level. Like in contrary to the comprehensive research institution, they have undergraduate, they have master degree, and PhD programs, and many of them are also has postdoc, like what they call postdoc programs as well. Like Georgia State University, using us as an example, we not only have a 4-year bachelor's, master's, and also PhD, we're one of the very unique universities. We also have a 2-year institution. We have a 2-year called Departmental College. That is associate degree campus. We have 6 campuses, so the Departmental offers 5 different campuses. The community college and technical colleges are mostly 2-year. A lot of them recently has changed to a 4-year, allowed by their state, depending on which state they are residing in, to offer a 4-year degree program. So many community college or technical college, not only you get associate, you can continue on to have a 4-year degree programs. Community college in the United States has been known for its flexibility, low cost, and a variety of programs, experiential learning. A lot of international students enjoy the transfer programs as well. For example, Georgia State University has our engineering program. It's a 2+2 guaranteed to Georgia Tech. Students finishing 2-year Georgia State Departmental College, which is a 2-year institution, and then as long as they meet a 3.0 GPA, they are guaranteed to transfer to certain institutions. Last year, we have students who transfer to MIT. We have students transfer to Case Western. We also have students transfer to UGA and mostly to Georgia Tech. Those are our tech program partners within our USG system. We all know public institutions and private versus one is receiving federal grants. The other one mostly from the endowment and donations. We also have language institutions for students from non-native English speaking countries. Like we have an intensive English program at Georgia State University that's run by semester. Students do not need to, for admission, students can apply for English training and they can obtain I-20 and come here to study 1 semester, which is 3 months, to 1 year. Many universities are partners with IEP centers in the US, offer transfer guaranteed programs, students finishing 1 semester or 1 year, and they can waive English proficiency and directly apply and enter degree offering programs. So, for example, Georgia State University, we are a research institution. Mostly we offer undergraduate and a master degree as well as PhD. Undergraduate students are also engaged in the research and co-op or other experiential learning opportunities. We offer 250 degree programs. Like our university system of Georgia, we have about 17 public institutions. And you all know Emory University, that is a private institution, also not far from Georgia State in Midtown. They have their campuses there. That is also a comprehensive research institution, but it's a private. So the private and the public, a lot of time you can see our differential factors are tuition and also the program offering. Tuition, for example, Georgia State, every year, our tuition is about $27,000 on the undergraduate level, $35,000 at the graduate. Private institution like SCAD or Emory, I think the tuition is about $37,000 to $41,000 a year. The graduate program is about $50,000 to $55,000 annually, US dollars. Now, this fall has been such a roller coaster for a lot of universities, especially come to admission and enrollment planning, as well as I bet for our Education USA colleagues and the students and the parents. So many of our Education USA colleagues been asking, what is your school planning for the fall? Are you gonna open? Are you gonna have online? Are you gonna have hybrid? So far, majority of the university in the United States are having plans. So you can have plan A, plan B, and plan C. Many universities even use code, like plan A, which is code green, which is the COVID is under control or vaccination is already developed. Everybody is safe to return to campus. For example, Georgia, our states are already made a decision by the university system as well as the board of regents. We are returning to campus. We are having face-to-face instructions. However, security measures are strictly implemented, such as the classes are divided into 2. Any classes more than 40 students are now being recommended divided into 2 sessions. So there will be group A, 20 students, group B, 20 students. So if a class is offered on Monday and Wednesday, group A are coming on Monday. Group B are doing online hybrid study, for example, using Zoom or we call them a virtual study. Virtual study is real time. There will be cameras in the classroom. Students can log in, can see the instructions from their home computer. And then on Wednesday, group A stay home and do the virtual learning. Group B come into campus. We also change our housing, our elevator, elevator even changed, permitting only 1 or 2 students based on the size of the each building and also the elevators. The housings changed to all single occupancy. Even the bathrooms right now are regulated. So students are provided with the mask, hand sanitizer, all the welcome package, including a lot of things that you normally would see comes to a new student orientation. So many security measures has been adopted and implemented for this fall. So I put it together a brief layout for students. We're recommending, even our university are open for the fall 2020 on campus, you can see on the left side. However, for international students, due to the 3 challenges I mentioned before, visa, travel restrictions, or financial burdens, we can offer students to start fall 2020 online. However, the online is different from virtual. Virtual is real time. Online, you can do recorded, you can study at your own pace on your flexible time. For example, right now is 11 a.m. I think it's 5 p.m. over your region, right? So a lot of students will miss the class, or when we start in class, you know, a lot of students in Asia maybe already, you know, is their bedtime. So most classes will be implemented online, which means the instructor are doing everything, sharing, recorded, or not require instant, like simultaneous learning. However, we do not know at this moment. We're still working very, very hard with the academic department, with the registrar's office, with the ISSS office, with the faculty to determine which class actually are able to offer online. For example, a lot of classes like our nursing program, like a chemistry or engineer, they require lab work, they require lab hours. So they do require once a week, at least on campus. So those classes will not be able to offer online. But like a computer science, we are able to offer them online. So it's really not a kind of like a like formatted, like one-way solution. It's always going to be case-by-case scenario. So what we do when the students continue to do register online, we'll give them a list of classes they are able to register online. So they can do online classes and they can do virtual classes if they are able to log in at a certain hour. For students who are able to get a visa and get airline tickets, hopefully can come here around August. Our university starts the 3rd week of August. Then we offer students whatever for domestic students, housing, accommodations, and tuition, and as well as a reduction on the fees. So usually the university fees, including technology fees, including recreation centers and many facility fees annually is about $2,000. This year we decreasing to $500 because of a lot of students cannot be able to participate on campus. So there's a fee structure difference. We can provide more information on another maybe presentation or occasion. So if the student is able to come this fall, they will do so. If they cannot, they can do fall 2020 online and then transition to campus in spring 2021. We do see a large group of students are choosing to take classes online for the whole academic year from fall 2020 to spring 2021. When they come into campus, they are able to participate in fall 2021. The great thing about it is when a student taking classes online, they do not need a visa. They do not need to pay a large lump sum of the fees. And many students are able to have a deduction on their rate for the E-rates for this fall. Those details are yet to come out. I think many universities in the United States are still working out on details, but those are the guidelines we're promoting right now. So Georgia State, many universities, as I said, as a tier 1 comprehensive university, you will see many of them have different colleges. For example, we have 9 different colleges and campuses, and among that is top ranked, if you care about the ranking, like College of Law, College of Business, and Arts and Science. So I'm gonna turn the topic to my colleagues and to focus more on the application process for the graduate level. John, Steve, you want to take over?
Sure, yeah, and John, I'll let you kind of walk through some of the pieces that are more applicable to a broader section of students. But before we move into that, I wanted to just kind of share with the group something about kind of the U.S. graduate education system and kind of how we're making decisions. When we look at applications, most schools tend to use a term called holistic review. And what that means is that we're looking at the entire candidate's profile and understanding how they might fit for a program. What that also means is that someone with the very top test scores in GPA might not be the strongest candidate for our programs. I share that with you because that's not the case in every country and in every education system. In many places, obviously the best test scores get you into an institution, or the best GPA guarantees you a space in a class. And while those things are certainly important to the process that we have here in the United States, it is not the only piece that we're looking at. Schools want to understand if you're going to be a good fit for our program, if you're going to be a passionate learner, if you're going to contribute to the community. And so you'll see that a lot as we talk through each of the pieces of the application, and certainly when we do a deeper dive into the personal statement, that much of what we're trying to understand is how, in business school where I work, how you'll be as a member of a team. You're going to work collaboratively with other students, and then as an alum of our program, how are you going to represent us to employers and so forth? And so that's where we start to look at not just those transcripts and test scores, but we're looking at your personal statement, trying to understand your drive. We're doing interviews, things like that. But I'm going to turn it over to Jon to kind of walk through those pieces of the application.
Thank you, Steve. So as he said, when you apply to one of our, any program in the US, they're going to be looking at the entirety of the application. So some of that will vary depending on your discipline. More weight is maybe placed on one area, but everything will be evaluated when making admissions decisions. So for instance, say you are applying to a STEM program. Well, when your transcripts are looked at, they are looking more at, how you did in math and science courses. If you're applying to a humanities course, they're going to be looking, more at your writing sample, any sample essays that you have provided, rather than your quantitative score on the GRE. However, that's not to say that these things aren't important either. So another thing for international students, you want to make sure that you submit Toefl or Ielts, or we are now accepting at Georgia State Duolingo. I know that's something that's becoming more prevalent. And transcripts, obviously, at GSU, we want to see transcripts from every university you've attended, not just where you earned your degree. I know that some schools require a second party evaluation, like a Wes or a Joseph Silney. We at the College of Arts and Sciences, we don't require that, but depending on where you apply, that may be something that you have to obtain. Writing samples, again, some of these are going to be program dependent, but if you're applying to a program that requires a writing sample, you want to make sure that you have that available. The resume or CV, that's going to be another thing that is kind of program dependent. In the College of Arts and Sciences, we're looking more at CVs. I know in the business school, they're going to be looking more at a resume. And then the letters of recommendation, you want to make sure that you can obtain letters that from someone who can attest to your academic abilities. When I worked in admissions, I would frequently see people who would get letters and they were glowing recommendations, but they were more, someone who knew you on a personal level, and that's not really what the admissions committee is going to be looking for. So you want to make sure that you have someone, whether it's a previous professor or someone who can speak to, your ability to succeed in a graduate program. And finally, interviews. We do a lot of interviews, especially on the PhD level for finalists. And I know that that's another thing that is very important, especially in the business school. So I'll let Steve kind of explain more about the interview process.
Sure. Thanks, Jon. Yeah, for us, the interview process at our business school and at many business schools is by interview only. And so very much like a job interview. Something that you just want to prepare for. And going back to, today's focus is the personal statement. And so we won't talk too deeply about these other pieces. But one thing I do want to reiterate that's certainly true of all of our programs at Georgia State and true of most U.S. institutions, if not all, is that, offices of admissions, like the ones that we work at, are here to help answer questions as well. So if you're applying to a program and you're not sure, should I send in a resume, a 1 to 2 pages, or a detailed CV? Those are the types of questions that we encourage you to ask. Sometimes you'll find them on our website already under frequently asked questions. So stop at the website first. But if you need help understanding how long should my personal statement be, should I take the Gmat or the GRE? Those are questions that we're happy to answer for you. If they're not already on the website, we hope that you find them there. But if you have a question that we aren't able to address other places, we encourage you to reach out to us. There's no negative stigma from a U.S. admissions process on asking questions. We want your application to be as strong as it can be when it gets to us. So don't hesitate as you go through the process of learning to apply to an undergraduate school or graduate school to reach out to folks like Peace or John or myself to ask questions. That's kind of part of what we're here for. So I think with that, we can move on to the next slide, which is kind of the focus of today is personal statements. And John, I'll let you kick this off as well.
Thank you. So the personal statement is something that is required for every program every graduate program in the College of Arts and Sciences. And you've completed your undergraduate degree, you've done well in your major courses, you took the GRE, you aced it, you have great letters of recommendation. But I've spoken to multiple graduate directors in my college, and I know that this is true at other universities as well, that the personal statement is the most important part of the application. So it's definitely not something you want to overlook. You want to put 100% effort into it, because when people are applying to grad school, you may have that great GPA, you may have that test score, but other applicants are going to, have the same test score. So what the personal statement can do is kind of set you apart, and it can honestly be the deciding factor when making admissions decisions, because as we'll discuss later, fit is a big part of making graduate admissions decisions. Faculty want to see that you as a student are going to mesh, you're going to work well as a team, your research interests align with those of the faculty. So that is something that can be like the ultimate deciding factor between someone who is admitted into a program and someone who is denied. And so you definitely want to make sure that your personal statement reflects who you are and what you want to do with the degree. And Steve, did you have anything else to add to that one?
No, I think that's great. We'll go over these are some of the tips that I've pulled together from reading lots of personal statements over the years at various schools. But before we dive into that, to really reiterate John's point, I was just working with faculty from one of our programs that were looking at a student that had a previous PhD and had an amazing GRE score. And the decision was, we're not sure if we want to admit him because we read his personal statement and it didn't really seem like he was that interested in our program. And so, I share that with you, not to scare you, but to help you understand how important these really are, that you can be an amazing candidate, overqualified for a program even. And if your personal statement doesn't express the type of interest that the faculty are looking for, they may choose someone else. Certainly for our programs that are very team-based in their learning, they want folks that are going to be engaged in the process from start to finish. So some tips that I've seen in the personal statement that are going to help you, and I think these are true of undergraduate, graduate, PhD level personal statements. Some schools will have a very general personal statement, and some will have a very specific set of questions. If you're in the latter category where you've got very specific questions that you're being asked, make sure that you answer them. One of the biggest mistakes that I see for applicants to programs is they've written a generic, broad statement that works for a lot of schools, kind of, but it doesn't meet the specific questions being asked by a school. And so if you fail to answer those questions, it either speaks to expressing, well, this person didn't put that much interest into applying to our program, they must not be that excited about us, or that they maybe didn't understand the question that was asked. And those are, neither of those are positions that you want to be in when you're under review for a program. Now, if you're in the more broad category, it's really important that you still tie your message into the application that you're applying for, and that's where kind of focusing on fit comes in. That goes back to the very first thing I said about how we review the process. You know, you might be an amazing candidate for one top business school or one top master's program in an arts and sciences program, and then for a very different school, you might not be a good fit at all. Even though your test scores and your transcripts and things like that haven't changed. So your personal statement, that's where you get to help us understand why you might be a good fit for our program. And what that means is that you need to do your research on the school of your choice. You need to know some things about that school. You need to know some things about what kind of who they produce, what type of student they produce, what type of industries those students go into, so that you can shape your essay around that school. That's really helpful. And that kind of leads into that next piece of why you chose that institution and program. If you're writing that broad personal statement about yourself, it better in some way incorporate, you know, why you're choosing to go on at not just into a master's in, you know, social work, but a master's in social work at Georgia State. And then, you know, it is a really great place for you to share your personality, to share some of those things that we can't find on a resume, that we're not going to see in your transcripts, and so forth. Some other tips: make sure someone proofreads your essay. My best advice for this is give someone the personal statement that you read or that you wrote, have them read it, you know, check it for any grammatical errors. Especially as an international student, we will use the personal statement to understand your academic writing ability, along with the Toefl or Ielts or whatever the test scores you submit. So it's really important that it be grammatically correct, but also have that person that read it say, you know, ask them, what question did you think the school was asking? Because that's going to help you understand if you answered the question that was initially asked, if someone who's reading that essay can understand the question that was asked without actually being told what it is. So I always encourage folks, have someone else read it and then ask them, what did you think I was trying to answer? And if they weren't able to pick that up, you may want to tweak your essay a little bit. A big problem we see in business school, and I want to reiterate, is don't restate your resume on a personal statement. So the most boring personal statement I will get is one that says, I graduated from college this year. I took my first job here. I then got a promotion. I didn't really like what I was doing, so I pivoted and I took a job here. We have all of that information on your resume already. And unless it's really important in understanding how you chose, you know, the school that you're going to, it's a wasted opportunity. You could be telling us something so much more exciting about you than, you know, just creating a narrative version of your resume. So while you can certainly talk about your career journey as part of, you know, your personal growth or however you're going to weave it in, it's really important that you don't waste an entire opportunity for us to understand who you are, just telling us what we already have on your resume or from your transcripts. And finally, some schools will have an optional second essay. This is not true of every school, certainly true of Robinson. Some schools have it, some schools don't, but if they do have it, it'll be called something like an optional essay. And this is a space for you. If the personal statement was very specific, you know, maybe it asked you to talk about, you know, the most challenging thing you faced in your career. Well, that doesn't give you a chance to put a voice to maybe some of the other parts of your application. So the optional essay oftentimes serves as that place where you can speak about a bad semester of grades or a gap in your work experience. If you have those types of things, I encourage you to use the optional essay. If you had a bad semester because you were working full-time or taking care of a family member and so forth, use that optional essay to speak to it. Don't ignore that gap in your work experience. You know, as the admissions committee, we're trained to find these things. So if you use the optional essay to give context to it, it's going to be helpful. I also encourage that context also share how you're going to overcome that in the future. So if you were working as an undergrad and your GPA suffered, well, we were thinking about giving you a graduate assistantship, you know, that was going to help with tuition, but now we're concerned that maybe we shouldn't because you couldn't handle work experience. So make sure that optional essay speaks to, you know, what's changed now, whether it's your maturity level or your ability to study, whatever it might be. And then don't feel obligated if you don't have any of these things to use the optional essay. Oftentimes we'll get students that write optional essays because they feel like they needed to, that we were going to judge them on it. This is truly a place that if you don't have anything that you need to speak to, you can skip it. We don't want to read any more on your application than we need to make sure that you're a strong candidate. Okay, and I think that's it for my tips. John, anything else you feel like would be helpful for folks to know?
I just want to kind of piggyback on that topic of fit and answering the questions and making sure your statement is tailored to the university. To speak frankly, you know, a lot of professors are, you know, they can be vain. And so they want to feel that their research and their program is the one that you are interested in. So if you, I know it saves time to write one document and just kind of make it generic and send that out to every program you're applying to, but I can't stress that enough. I mean, admissions committees, they see so many personal statements, they can immediately suss out one that is not tailored to their program. And so you want to really make sure that you do your research, you do your homework, you know who's who in the field and who works at this university. You know, drop names. You know, you've looked at this particular professor's CV and you really think that your research interests align with theirs, and you're excited to work with them. So that will immediately catch their eye if they see their name or they see their field. And at the same time, you want to make sure that if your research interests, if the university you're applying to has the faculty to support your research interest. For example, I was speaking to the grad director for our PhD astronomy program, and he said that he recently had an applicant who was, you know, a really promising applicant in theoretical cosmology. Well, Georgia State doesn't have any faculty that support that area, so they would not be admitted. So that is another thing. You just want to really make sure that the university can support your interest. If not, you know, you're better served not submitting an application to that program and finding one that, you know, really fits what you want to do, because it's your degree. So you want to make sure that you have the support that you need at the school you're applying to. Okay.
Yeah, this is excellent. Very good. Thank you, John and Steve. Also, I want to add on a story, just share a story with you. In 2017, I think when John talked about the optional essay, so there's a story in 2017, I'm not sure if you all heard about it. It was a student applying from Tennessee. She got admitted by Yale University. What she did is in her optional essay, they were asking something like, what is your interest? What you like to do as a hobby? Or what something interests you in that line of questions. And she shared her experience of enjoying the Papa John pizza. You know, many US families, like every Friday is a pizza night. And she shared her very basic but passionately about why that 8 slices of pizza, and when somebody ring the doorbell, and how her feelings, how just a simple order of pizza representing and evoking her feelings of independency, of a family gathering. So all those good memories. And she got into Yale University because the reviewers, the counselor enjoyed her writing, reflecting who she is. So not every personal statements or optional essay writing has to be grand, has to be big, has to be academic. Sometimes reflect yourself, be true, be who you are. Maybe many university, even the employer in the future, they wanted to look for somebody who are trainable, but most importantly are understanding this person in the future, their value to the institution. So I just want to add on this like little story to my colleague's presentation. So we have one more slide. Hang on, let's see. Is talk about scholarships. So I'm gonna take on briefly, and then we'll turn to John and Steve talk more on the graduate level. The scholarships in many universities, when we received your application, so there are two types of scholarship. One is application based. You do need to submit a separate application. For example, we have presidential. Presidential scholarship is required. So we also have Coca-Cola, 1913, so many private scholarships as well as those merit-based scholarship. The presidential scholarship covers pretty much all your tuition and fees. We have about, for the undergraduate level, about 20 students every year. And I think for the graduate level, they might have maybe a couple for each colleges, but it's extremely difficult and competitive. So the other one are the regular international student scholarship. You do not need to apply. As long as you meet a certain threshold, you will be considered automatically. Basically, the processing, college application process, my colleagues mentioned we require the scores and we require recommendation letters and then personal essay or personal statement. For the steps, when the students complete the application, submit all the documents, evaluations, everything, their files complete, then we let the system, which is the machine, run the first calculation based on the score, based on the GRE, TOEFL. Anybody who meet the minimum or this year's average will be separated from those who are not qualified. So among those being separated by the system or by the machine, then we take a look at it by different category, who will be considered automatically for those different type of scholarships. Then among students who have possibly each scholarship, we have, for example, for our new international freshmen, we have about 200 overall for out-of-state and international. Normally we offers around 100 scholarship to the international students automatically. That requires 3.6 GPA and also SAT around 1300. So a lot of times the machine will tell us, oh, this student's qualify. Then the reviewing committee or the reviewing counselor will get in to take a look at reading the recommendation letters and personal statements. So that's how the scholarship normally works. There are different steps and different processes to screening them. Once they get into the final one for the top scholarships, which is about $20,000 for undergraduate level, and that is require a committee's recommendation. So I will turn to my colleagues to talk about the graduate level.
John, you can go ahead and start.
Okay. So the scholarships and fellowships on the graduate level are going to be kind of similar. We have on the graduate school's website, a list, and any university is going to have like a list of available scholarships and fellowships. And my main point of advice for these would be to make sure that you meet the eligibility requirements. For a lot of the fellowships and scholarships at the PhD level, they want to make sure that they're awarding them to students who have completed all of their coursework and they're working on their dissertation. So just be sure that you closely read the eligibility criteria. And if you're not quite at that point, I would say hold off on applying, but they are definitely worth your time. And the essay that you write for a scholarship is going to be kind of similar to, you want to follow the same guidelines for, say your personal statement when you were applying for admission. You want to show, what your research goals are and what you what you could do if you were awarded this scholarship or fellowship.
Yeah, and so I can really only speak to business schools for scholarships. I haven't spent a lot of time issuing scholarships outside of business schools, but we work a lot like the undergraduate level, and most business schools do in that sense, where much of the scholarshiping is part of the application process without a separate requirement. We certainly have a few scholarships that you can apply to after the fact. But most of our scholarships are merit-based for understanding, particularly for business school, but for many other schools as well, like law schools and other places in the U.S. The first place I think to go is to look at the rankings. The U.S. News and World Report is a big driver for many graduate programs of how they shape their class. And so the things that they're ranked on, test scores, transcripts, starting numbers of work experience or salary, these are the types of kind of metrics that are going to be desirable in our class. And so scholarshiping is used in many ways to secure that class profile. And so understanding what are the things that the school values is going to help you understand how do you position yourself to be strong in that regard, or how do you put that best foot forward. So, for many schools, retaking the GRE exam may be the difference between not getting a scholarship and getting a scholarship. So, it may be worth it to take it the second time, even though your first time, you did well enough to get admitted. It might be worth it. Why not? $250 or whatever it is US for the test may end up with a partial scholarship worth many more times that later on. Some other advice for scholarshiping is also kind of know where you sit within the class profile. Most schools and programs publish their incoming class profiles, and that's going to help you understand, am I a median student or am I above the median? If you're above the median, you're more likely to be scholarshiped than if you were at the median. Oftentimes we will get students that get admitted to our program, and then they immediately email us and say, I thought if I got in I would get a scholarship. And that's oftentimes when we look at their profile, they were kind of very much in the median. So, we only give scholarships at Robinson to about the top 10% of our students. So that expectation and the reality just aren't meeting up. And that's where it's important to know what's typical for a school. Does a school have full scholarships? Does a school only have partial scholarships? Is it a private school that has a large endowment that can do a lot of tuition discounting, or is it a public school that has very limited scholarship resources that it can use? And so that's helpful in understanding things as well. There's lots that go into that. And then the final piece is really, again, you might want to think about applying to a few different tiers of schools if scholarships are really important. You might be a median student at one school, but at a school a few places down in the rankings, maybe you're an above average student, and the difference of cost of attendance would make up for the perceived benefit of being at a school with one or two places higher in the rankings. And then finally, to go back to the personal statement, they're always important. We have at Robinson departmental scholarships. So basically our departments look through students that they want to work with as graduate assistantships and so forth. And they really love the personal statement and the resume as tools for identifying these people. They're looking for people with programming skills or with past experience doing research or whatever it might be. They're going to find that information about you in your application, and one of the places they're going to find that is the personal statement. And as Jon said, sometimes in a personal statement you may say, I'm really excited to work with Professor so-and-so. And well, that professor's on the admissions committee, and they review your application and they think, well, gee, I'm going to give this person a graduate assistantship that comes with a tuition waiver when we admit them, because they're excited to work with me. I want somebody that's excited to work with me to come in and be on my team. So, one more reason to tailor your personal statement back to the school is that it could end up helping you secure some graduate funding.
Yes, I think we keep talking about one term called a tuition waiver. So I wanted to give go back a little bit, just give a brief introduction about what scholarship levels we have. So we have something called waivers. The waiver for many public institutions, you can see that they offer students out-of-state tuition waiver. What does that mean is normally, for example, for Georgia State University, the domestic students, if they are in-state, in Georgia, they are the residents of Georgia, their undergraduate level is normally about $7,000 a year. And then for the out of state, even you're from state of Florida, you're from Washington State or New York, students pay the same as international students. They paying around $21,000 a year. So the 7,000 versus 21,000. If they are taking a more, such as 15 or higher level, which we do not recommend to take more than 15 normally, but if the student is taking 15, so their out of state tuition will be a little more higher. So what this do is the tuition waiver, or out-of-state tuition waiver to be exact, also called a Campus Atlanta scholarship, that they removes the out-of-state tuition. So bring your tuition from maybe 21 to 25,000 down to $7,000 a year, which is about $3,500 every semester. Of course, you have to pay fees, you have to pay books and the travel expenses or room and board. But for the tuition side, right now, the waiver is our, I would say, the #1 scholarship, right, John? I think for the graduate level, it's the same case.
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and then there's a next level, which is additional merit base. So like I mentioned, the presidential, we also have 5 different categories that require students to apply. That is require mostly a personal statement. You do not need to provide anything else like scores, but even the recommendation letter is waived, but you do need to write a special essay to see why you should be considered for these special scholarships. So the additional scholarships which is all online. Every university has a scholarship website. You can just type Google scholarship at this university or financial aid at this university. They will come up. For Georgia State, the same way, students financial services at Georgia State University. And then they will offer those 5 different categories, is from $2,000 a year to about $10,000 additional. So in addition to the waiver, a lot of students are getting additional scholarship based on their scores and qualifications. And those different scholarships outside of the waiver are required to have a personal statement or a essay question to be answered. So for the private institution, like many universities, like Cornell, I worked with those undergraduate community before, like SCAD, Emory, which is close by Vanderbilt. When we travel together, a lot of times they have something called a need-based. Many private institutions, because they have huge endowment fund, and then they like to use that one to promote, not only attract the best, most qualified students, but also they wanted to get something in return to their community. So they do offer need-based financial aid. The need-based, which is for both domestic and international, required, in addition to your essay, to a statement, to application, also family's income statement. So maybe they require the paycheck or pay stub or a tax form from the parents or from your sponsors in order for you to qualify. So those are the things I want to mention for the scholarship, because I know for international students, especially now, it means a lot. I think we covers pretty much everything from this university system, admission process, requirement, focus on the essay writing tips and the scholarship policy. This is pretty much all we're gonna focus on today. John, Steve, before we turn to the question, any additional points you want to mention?
I'll touch a minute on graduate assistantships, because that's a big recruiting tool for Georgia State, and something that especially our international students are interested in. So we have a section within the admission application where you can indicate your interest in receiving a graduate assistantship. And so that will, students who are awarded one will receive a tuition waiver plus an annual stipend, and a stipend amount can vary program to program. But that will also require an essay. And so with a graduate assistantship, with the essay, you're essentially applying to be an employee of the department. So you want to kind of tailor that essay to focus more on your your professional strengths and your any faculty member within the department that you want to work with. I will say that if you are not awarded an assistantship upon admission to your department, at Georgia State at least, you can also apply for GA positions within other colleges. There are assistantship opportunities, say at the rec center or the library. So just because you're not awarded an assistantship by your department when you applied, that does not mean that you can't obtain that funding and that tuition waiver from another office on campus. So don't give up hope if you don't get one first thing from your department.
Yeah, I think students after they get here, international students, they can also work on campus. After 1 year or 1 semester, I think they can work off campus up to 20 hours a week as well, which is the minimum wage for Georgia right now is $8.05. That's what most of our students assistants getting paid hourly, if you know, in addition to their scholarship at the undergraduate level. For the graduate, I'm so glad that John mentioned the graduate assistantship. We have actually a couple of students working in the missions department, and they are, in addition to the tuition waiver, and basically pay their tuition, even in-state part is covered, and in addition, about $800 a month, I think, those GRAs working our office. So, okay, so I think we're ready for questions. I'm gonna turn over to my Education USA colleagues and to let them take control. There we go. So if you have questions, I mean, you can unmute and ask us directly as well.
Looks like we have a couple in the chat.
We do? Okay. Let me see here. Okay, we got a one. It said, can a good statement, top test scores, and extracurricular academic achievements prevail over GPA for a graduate scholarship assistantship application and make it stand out among candidates with top GPAs? And if so, to what extent?
Yes. Short answer, yes. That goes back to what Steve was talking about, how applications are reviewed holistically. So obviously the GPA will be an important factor in determining, who is admitted or receives an assistantship, but all of those other items as well are going to be factored in. So your personal statement, your past academic or professional experience, your letters of recommendation, all of that is going to be considered. So yes, those things can be a factor, and it's not just GPA that's looked at when making those decisions.
And also adding on, I think Amit asked another question, is sharing his experience as a, he wanted to make a decision to having an MA in TESOL, teaching English as a second language, based on the short-term career goal, with many invoking around boosting my professional soft skill. In addition, is TESOL my best for such goal? Okay, we do have English TESOL. Actually, we have not only TESOL, we also have other programs like for example, teaching Korean as a second language, teaching second language. We have many like East Asian language. We have a College of Arts and Sciences under the linguistic department. And TESOL is popular in not only getting a certificate, but also you can go ahead having teaching experience and in our IEP program. However, to make a recommendation on what if this is best for you, I think this is really your personal passion and also depend on two things. One, do you will you be able to enjoy being a TESOL teacher, which is a lot of, from what I had encountered in the past, they are not only teaching in the US, they are teaching at different levels, like high schools and middle schools and different public schools, as well as at the university level. And many of them actually work for international schools around the world. The second factor to consider is the job opportunity. Right now, many countries, actually, English is a required second language. So is that going to be a future career? Like in 2006, I remember everybody talk about accounting is the #1 career. When TESOL are going to be the #1 career in the world, we might see that's coming up, but this is really a personal choice. I think maybe, John, you from Arts and Science, have you know anything about the TESOL program?
I know that, so we have a PhD in applied linguistics and then an MA in applied linguistics plus a graduate certificate in TESOL. And so I know that pretty much every student who graduates with a PhD or an MA within that program picks up a TESOL certificate along the way. So that's another thing where I would encourage you to look at a university you want to apply to and reach out to the graduate director for that TESOL program or someone within the department and just kind of explain what your goals are and just see if you would be a good fit for the for that program.
So I put the email link here, gradapply@gsu.edu. If you have any questions, you can send it to our graduate office, and the graduate office staff will get back with you or link you with each department, the contacts or the directors. I think we have another question. Was talking about.
There was one question at the top. Can a graduate student work part-time or full-time jobs? And I just want to say that most, or I shouldn't say most, but many of our programs do not want grad students working full-time. And there are additional restrictions on how much international students can work, but just as a blanket statement, they really discourage students from working because your courses and plus any assistantship responsibilities you have if you are awarded a GA, that's going to be more than a full-time job. So you do not want to overload yourself and then find yourself struggling in your classes.
Yeah, our international students are asked in the US to carry a pretty heavy course load. So while oftentimes there may be internship opportunities and so forth, it's typically a low load it's typically a part-time load. But again, the most important thing, and you'll work with your international student office, is making sure that you stay in compliance with the work authorizations that are in place. On-campus employment, is viewed differently than off-campus employment for a lot of this. I saw a question that was kind of the length of the personal statement, and I'll go back to, this is going to vary greatly by the school and by the program. My school, our programs, we ask for 750 words, so that's 3 pages double spaced. Other schools will want maybe multiple shorter essays, maybe 3 to 5 essays that are 1 to 2 pages long. Some schools might want just one personal statement that's 250 to 500 words. It's just going to depend on the school and the program and what they're trying to get at with their personal statement. So again, check the school's website, check the individual school about what they're kind of looking for. Maybe attend a web session similar to this for that school, and I think they're going to give you a good idea of what the length should be on a personal statement. John, I'm going to kick a question to you because I don't know as much about the PhD, but there's a question here about how much PhD programs weight things like the GPA versus experience, work experience in a relevant field. Is 10 years working in chemistry more important than a great GPA in a undergrad chemistry program, and how does that get weighed in a PhD application?
Yes. So professional experience, I have seen students who did their undergrad in an unrelated field, and then they went into the workforce and found their passion after they graduated from undergrad, and they were able to get admitted to a PhD program based on that that professional experience. So that is going to be something that will definitely be looked at, and that's a great topic to bring up in your personal statement, like how your journey went, how you discovered that you were passionate about this topic. And short answer, yes, that is something that will be considered and can help you in getting admitted to a PhD program.
I would probably advise that it would make sound sense as well to make sure you do well on a GRE exam, or Gmat, or whatever the professional test is. If your GPA isn't going to be on pace with maybe some of the people that you're kind of competing against, but your work experience does outshine them, the true apples to apples comparison is going to be the GRE or the Gmat for many programs. So having strong quantitative measures may be helpful as well. And there's a follow-up question here targeted specifically for business schools about GMAT waivers and professional certifications. So if you have a CFA or a CPA certification already, many schools like the Robinson College of Business will use that in lieu of the GMAT or the GRE to make a decision. I will caution, however, that as we mentioned in the scholarship section, that those scholarship characteristics are really important. Those characteristics are really important in scholarship decision making. So if you don't have a GMAT or a GRE score and you apply to our program because we've waived that, that's one less data point that we can use to justify you as a strong scholarship candidate. So as we're trying to use scholarships to shape our class, keep in mind that even if you might be waived out of the GMAT or GRE, it may be in your best interest to still have that test score in your back pocket so that you could say, not only am I a qualified candidate for your program, but I'm a strong candidate for scholarship. So whenever a student is looking at the waiver, I like to at least let them know that it may have some impact on the types of scholarships that may be available to them at the graduate level. Certainly true of business schools.
In a situation like that, you also may be required to take certain foundational courses if you haven't taken them already. We have something called special status admission at Georgia State, which is essentially, it's a conditional admit. So say that the admissions committee reviews your application and they want to admit you based on your recommendations and your professional experience, but you may be required to take, certain foundational courses within the discipline just so you have that background.
Another question I saw, and I think this is true, but John, I want to get your opinion from a school outside of business schools. What if my school doesn't really have a GPA? What if my transcripts are first class with distinction, second class with distinction? And I know for Robinson, we see international transcripts from all over the world at high volume. So we're pretty comfortable looking at at students and their success in their kind of original transcript formats. And when we say GPA, I really, when we're talking about things like scholarships and admission, I really think we mean academic strength. If you're first class with distinction in your grades at your graduate program, that's still going to put you in a strong position for scholarships and so forth. We use GPA as kind of shorthand for meaning, academic performance.
That's right. Georgia State and most, large U.S. universities. I mean, we've touched and seen transcripts from pretty much every country in the world, and so we are well equipped to evaluate different grading scales and do any necessary conversions. If there is some kind of question or discrepancy or whatnot, you may be asked to obtain a third-party evaluation, but that's not, don't let that discourage you. I mean, as Steve said, GPA does not mean that we are expecting every person who applies to have something that's on the 4-point GPA scale. We can do any evaluations in-house, and I would wager that most universities are the same.
Yeah, I see a question from a student that was preparing for the GRE, but then it was canceled. And so I think that's you could, I guess you could reflect that you studied for it on your CV. I think that if your school has an optional essay, that's a really good place to just make a note that said, I was ready to take the GMAT or the GRE online, or I was ready to take it and it was canceled. Lots of schools, Georgia State has suspended a lot of the test requirements this year, so we have a lot of applicants that don't have test scores. So this year is a little bit different when it comes to how we're making decisions on scholarships, but I think it's certainly worth making sure that that's in there somewhere, that you were preparing, just to show that you were dedicated to the cause. But I don't think you need to spend too much time on it. You're not alone in that regard, for sure.
Right. Talk to your school's admissions office or the department. We're all in the same boat here in terms of this being just a crazy year. And so everyone is aware that the exam schedules are, exams are being canceled or delayed. I know at Georgia State, we are allowing students to upload unofficial score reports that they have. If, say, ETS or whatever testing body can't get these scores to you, and programs are suspending that requirement or waiving it. So, I think most schools are going to be flexible, but just reach out if you have any questions, and you can also explain that in your statement or CV. I see there's a question about how long a personal essay should be on average. That's really going to vary depending on the program. So just make sure that you read the application and reach out to someone at the school you're applying to, because as Steve said, that may vary. Some programs may want a brief, they have a word requirement. Others may want a longer statement. So just make sure that you read over the prompts within the application and just see what exactly it is that they require. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact the Office of Admissions or someone within the department to make sure.
That's right. We just got a question in about kind of securing transcripts, and I'll say this is one of the more difficult aspects of the pandemic for a lot of our students. Is, as Jon mentioned, for many of us, we are accepting unofficial transcripts as part of the admissions process right now, understanding that many universities are not going to be either open or have access to do their regular services of providing transcripts. So if you don't have a copy of your transcripts to secure unofficially, it can be a challenge to apply to a graduate program if your school is not issuing transcripts. Unfortunately, we really do need those to make an admissions decision. There really is no way to make a decision without at least an unofficial copy of a transcript. So there are very few scenarios that we can't work around entirely, but if you're completely unable to secure transcripts from your institution to send along to us, I often encourage students to reach out to WES or one of the other evaluation services. Sometimes they have direct channels with schools that they've established to help facilitate some of the scores, the test and transcript sending, to see if they can help at all. But if your school or a third party isn't able to help secure your transcripts or your evaluation, you may have to ultimately wait to apply for a future semester when your school's office is open again.
There's a question about our junior and senior years given more weight in evaluating GPAs. I would say that on the whole, the grades you make in your major courses, as long as you're applying, say you're applying to an MS in biology, well, they're going to be looking closer at how you did in your biology and chemistry courses rather than, English or, a language course. So it's less years and more the major discipline courses, how you did in those classes.
Another question I'm seeing is about when to take the GRE or the GMAT. You certainly need to take it before you apply to a program. Your application won't be considered complete and a decision won't be issued at almost all institutions unless you have a GMAT or GRE score. The one exception I can think of to that would be if you're using starting through an English language institute. Oftentimes you can be conditionally admitted. You'll take the English Language Institute, and then they'll ask that you submit a test score prior to being fully admitted to a program. But if you're not going the route of an institute for English in the United States, most often a school is going to require that you have a GMAT or GRE score as part of the application process and not after.
So I answered all the questions regarding the visa. We do have a lot of students here coming to the US, which need a F1. Also a J visa is exchange scholar, exchange students who are coming here for non-degree for short-term study. We do see students coming here due to the parents or due to the spouse or partner working in the US. You can do a H4, also H1B or L, M, O, N. We have so many different students working on different visas. We even have students who are currently out of status, which is the students came here on a tourist visa and decided to study in the university. So first of all, I want to make sure we are considering two different sets, a parallel review process. Three of us, Jon, Steve, and myself, we are the frontier for the admission process, which is we look at your academic background qualifications. After admitted, we have another team of International Student Scholar Services team who will review your immigration status. As I said, Georgia State University will not because your immigration status. The immigration status, however, will reflect your tuition levels. For example, if you're in-state, you're a green card holder, if you're a H, you're a F, you're a J, you will be qualified for certain things that we mentioned, the financial aid, tuition waivers, scholarships, or other things. If your current status is not verifiable, or in-between status in middle, or you are out of status, you might take longer to petition into a tuition classification group. And that part is controlled by the International Student Scholar Services as well as our tuition classification offices. So that's why I said your visa status, the easiest, the most popular, most of our international students coming to Georgia State is on F1 visa. If you said the visa regulations, which is current visa regulation with a lot of embassy are closed, consulate not offer visa interview. But I think we just signed a petition associated with NICAC and also many other higher ed institution and educational services. Right now are filing petitions for the US State Department considering offer visa interview online for our international students coming to study in the United States. I think our Education USC colleagues will have the most updated information. Once that is approved or any change of policy, they will be definitely the most reliable sources to update you on that one. So that's why what the question said, what exam, which is the question one? Oh, what the current visa regulation? I will refer that question back to the Education USA colleagues in the future. So I think we have maybe a couple minutes for maybe a couple questions. Let me see where we are on the graduate level questions. I see the last one. What exam I must focus on, Gmat or GRE, if I'm looking for apply for PhD of law?
Yeah, and John can chime in since he works with a broader portfolio, but for most programs, for most PhDs and for most graduate programs, the GRE is going to be the exam that you're looking at. The GMAT exam is only accepted by business schools. We also accept the GRE. So for most of our programs, it's a matter of preference, GMAT or GRE, but the GMAT is only accepted by business schools. So most PhD programs are going to be, you're going to be talking about the GRE, unless you're applying to a business school PhD program, then they do prefer the GMAT exam.
That's right. I don't really work very closely with the with law students, but I would say it's probably the GRE because the GMAT's being more of a specialized exam. But would be another question where you could reach out to the university you're applying to and just make sure that you are focusing on the right exam, because you don't want to waste your time studying and taking an exam that is not accepted by that program.
Yeah, the law school actually has two levels. One, most international students, if you're undergraduate law, you come into the United States, directly study is something called a Master of Law. First is LLM. Most universities in the US do not offer undergraduate law. Like a few of them, California, they do, but like Georgia State, we don't have a specific pre-law or undergraduate law, like pre-professional. So students mostly are getting into the law school. They come from undergraduate, like psychology, philosophy, even have a criminal justice or other programs. We even have students was, in each department. Now, after getting into the Master of Law, LLM, we all seen students getting into the JD, which is the PhD level, the JD. If you are applying for JD directly from overseas, the requirements is very strict. You have to have an undergraduate law from where country you are, and you have to take a LSAT, which is the law program, like GRE, GMAT for business and arts and sciences. LSAT is for the law school entry. In addition to that one, however, LLM do not need to have for Georgia State is no test required. You can finish your LLM in a year or 2 years, I believe, and then you can move on to your PhD level. Then you have to pass the bar the bar exam in order to practice. So the JD program is very strict in the US because that's very difficult to get in. I think like John and Steve said, sending the email directly to apply@gsu.edu, and then we'll provide you with more detailed question. So when you email, always clearly stating what is your background. Do you have an undergraduate level? At what major? You're looking for a master or you're looking for a PhD level? You have to give us a more specific. We get students from email that just say, hey, I'm interested in international business. At what level? What's your background? Are you applying as a transfer? Are you applying as a freshman? Are you applying at the graduate level? So when you're sending a university email, that's also a very important, is your first interaction with a official admissions officer. You have to making sure you're writing properly, professionally, because that may goes into your future profile reviewing. Okay, I will let John, you want to take over the next question? GRE before applying for a program in PhD in sociology?
Yes, that's a very common question. Pretty much every program is going to want you to take the exam, any required exam, whether it's GRE, GMAT, before an offer of admission can be made, because if you don't submit the scores and they're required for that program, your application would be considered incomplete, and there's no way you would be admitted. So yes, definitely you want to take the GRE or any other required exam before you apply. There's another question up here. I have several programs at different colleges that are the same. How do you advise me on choosing the right college among them? I would look at the faculty within the department and just look over their CVs and whatnot, and just try and determine which one, whose research interests align with yours the closest. That's another thing that you can reach out to the program about, and just make sure that you're doing your homework and you find that program that's going to be the best fit for you, because the program wants to find the students that fit best with them, but you also want to find the program that fits best for you. So just look over the faculty and any other factors that you're thinking of, what the location of the school, whatnot, what's going to work best for you.
Yeah, I would encourage you to look at some of those support services and structures as well, right? And so one of the easiest way to do that is to see, oftentimes schools will let you talk to current students, or we'll have some alumni profiles. Look for folks that look like you. Are they international students that were from your background that were able to secure careers in industries that you're interested in, or were able to go on to do research in areas that are similar to yours? That should tell you that, okay, this is a school that's located in a place that I can be successful. It's got the support services that I might need to be successful, right? If people before you have been successful and that look similar to you, I think that's the easiest way. And most schools would be happy to connect you with current students. And our current students are, I think, the best way to kind of understand, which is the right place for you. So I talk to a current student at each school and say, hey, this is who I am, these are my interests, and do you think this is a place that can support me to reach those goals?
I think we covered all the questions. Any other questions? You can raise your hand before.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stevens, Joan, and Peace, for this. It's really a fantastic webinar, and you were really flexible with taking questions apart from the topics that you agreed to discuss. So thank you so much for this informative session, and we'll keep it as a reference on Facebook so students can get back to it if they have any questions, so they can get back to whatever tips you've provided. So I just wanted to thank you so much, and we're so happy that you were with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, have a great evening.
Yeah, and you have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Steve. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.